David, if we could just start off with a lot of talk about financial fair play. What do you see as the most recent impact on clubs at championship level and also the most recent transfer window?
Well, financial fair play has been spoken about a lot, obviously, in the last 2 years especially. And the true impact of it won't be known for a couple of years or so, in my opinion. But we at Brighton, we've been, well, before I even turned up at the club, have been planning and working hard to get in line with financial fair play. We know the ins and outs of every part of it, and across the club, you'd have seen in the last summer we've had to save about £3 million in total, and that's meant a huge effort from the club to reduce costs, supported by the fans, supported by the board, and it's enabled us to really hit this first year of financial fair play with a player budget which is the same as last year. I've seen a glut of players where they used to think they were in a strong position by being on a free transfer at 24, 28 years of age, are finding that's no longer the case, and many are still being without a club even now. In the past it would have been seen that they were in a strong position, they could demand a high signing on fee, but that's not the case because the clubs just don't have that money. I've seen a definite fall in wages. So players at the beginning of the transfer window, their agents asking for certain wages. Clubs, because of financial fair play in the past, might have met those demands, can't. By the end of the window, or even halfway through and the beginning of August, those wages have fallen by, in examples I know of, more than 25% in the demands. However, the true impact won't be found out until everyone posts their results in November 2014, and we actually can see who was within the financial limits and not. And then it will then be, and we all hope, a club like Brighton who've been diligent and plan meticulously for this event so that we're in a strong position. We hope that the Football League will be really strong, and with the embargoes and the fines, or the taxes as they call it, are imposed properly, because there are a number of clubs that we know already will not be within the financial limits, and you know, and the idea is that these clubs will be penalised.
Do you expect to be busy in the loan window? I know you sort of have mentioned that you do think that the club will be active, and is it more likely that you'll be looking for striking options as your top priority? Yeah,
we'll definitely look for a striking option because of the injuries that we have. We have got good striking options at the club already, but because of the injuries to Barnes, which are short-term, Maka and Will, which are long-term, we do need to get a loan option in that fits the type of player that they are, so that we've got that replacement whilst they're out. But in the long term we don't need them because, you know, the medical department are working hard to get them back on the pitch as soon as possible. But we will definitely be dipping into the loan market in order to have a short-term fix for those players.
So does financial fair play help you, or does it make it more difficult for you when you're recruiting, going into the loan market, for instance, to look for a striker?
It's a harder job because more clubs are thinking the same way. We don't need to think that way, but we don't need to sign strikers if we've got strikers already. What we need is strikers on short-term contracts, which is a loan deal, because we're waiting for Maka to come back and get back in the team. And the same with Will, and the same with Barnsley. So for that reason we go into the loan market. Using the loan market isn't our strategy, but for a lot of clubs it will be, because they have to pay only 6 months' wages or 3 months' wages to give themselves a little boost. We're always on top of looking at where injuries might come, suspensions might come, and our scouting department are always looking for options in all positions, so that if a cover is needed or someone to come in and play straight away is needed, we can give options to Oscar and his team to look at and choose from.
In terms of sort of balancing the books and the difficult job that it is, Albion fans have seen, you know, promising talents like, you know, Solly March, Jake Forster-Caskey, you know, being involved in the first team squad. How important is it, one, that they're coming through for the future of the club, but also for the immediate future in order to balance the books?
It's essential. you know, the perfect model will be that you bring in some players, obviously, for the first team manager who's got experience and can perform now and strengthen the squad. But every year to bring in, I would say, 2 players from below who can come in and show that they're capable of playing senior football 2 or 3 games when needed, so you don't have to dip into the loan market all the time. It's been fantastic this year to see Rowan, who's always had potential as a young player, come on and show that he can perform. Maximenko had a couple of games where he had to play. He's still getting used to the culture of English life, having come from Latvia, and then going straight away on loan to Hove and living in a hotel. He still really hasn't settled, but he's come in and when needed put in a sound performance and shown that he can be trusted to play. He can also play as a centre-back. Solly is one of the most exciting prospects we've had come out of Brighton for a long time in his technical ability and creativity, and there's not many of those types of players in England, let alone at Brighton, and he's from the doorstep, which is fantastic. And he's now training every day with the first team, as Jake and George Barker have done for, you know, a year or so now, to gain his experience, and he will be given time on the pitch throughout the next year and year after, and eventually become part of the team. But in any model, there has to be players coming from your academy, that if you're investing into it. And logistically, you can only really bring in 2 per age group, because if you over 13 years, if you bought 2 per age group, that creates a squad of 26 players. So this year we would say we've introduced 3 new players with Solly, Maxi and Rowan, with George and Jake already been in the squad from the years before, and obviously historically we've got Dunkey, Adam and other players that have come through. So our aim is to try and do that. Now at the moment we're having, because of Brighton being a centre of excellence before, now we're Category 2 academy with the potential to go to Category 1 once we go to the new training ground or a year's time from then. We've lost a lot of players. You know, I was just counting up before I came to the interview that there's over 20 players in Brighton, Eastbourne, Worthing, Crawley, you know, all around Sussex, that are at other academies from the age of 16 down. Now with our new academy, with the club's playing philosophy, the new stadium, the brand new facility in Lancing, and all the support that it will give not only first team players but young players to fulfil their potential, we would hope that not only will those players want to come back to us, which they're always welcome to do so, we would also hope that young players won't leave the area. And why would a parent drive all the way up to South London 4 or 5 times a week when they've got the same facility on the doorstep? But what we offer at Brighton, more than the Premier League clubs that have academies in Category 1s, is we have a pathway to the first team, and that's the most important part in recruitment, that our players know that if they work hard in the academy, that if they get in their first professional contract in the development squad or the Academy Under-21 team, they will have a real chance to get into the first team. And that's where your board is strong, our board is very strong, and that's where it's very important to have a manager who has that belief in young players and has the skill and experience to nurture them, so that when they train with the first team, it's a welcoming experience, an environment where they're still learning, knowing that they're not necessarily going to perform every week from the beginning, but with experience, with exposure, with guidance, with the right environment, that they will work their way through and become regulars in our first team.
In terms of the scouting system, how's it changed in the last sort of year or two, and your recruitment, you know, has it changed much in terms, and how happy are you and the board with the setup at the Albion, in bearing in mind financial fair play, bearing in mind the challenges you've got? How happy are you with the system that you have in place at the moment?
We're pleased with the system that we have in place. You say, has it changed? Well, I did bring in change to that, in bringing a structured scouting system with a clear strategy for reporting on and identifying players. The recruitment side of that is down to the club and the manager. The manager will always choose the players that we purchase for the first team. He will watch lots and lots of players, but what the scouting department does, and it's scouting and analysis that work hand in hand, what they do is, for any one time as we lead into a window, not all players become available because of the contract length they have, because of the wages they're on, because of injury, whatever. But at every certain window, a certain number of players sort of rise to the top that are becoming available. So we need to, as the department, identify all the players that will be available. That's through being in contact with agents, being in contact with other clubs. We need to ensure that we've been watching them in that period, so we can give good, accurate, objective, up-to-date reports on the player to the manager. We ensure that we know that the characteristics and identify the ones that fit the manager's desires for players. And the analysis department will look statistically and through clipping of players, so that we can then give them to the management team to look at, so then they can actually go and watch them and scout them live themselves or watch them on DVD. So the department is always running in that way. It's doing it now for the loan options, and it does it through the window.
Well, let's just finish up then, and finally, so I suppose a message to the fans really, David. What would your message be to fans, bearing in mind maybe what's happened over the last year or so as financial fair play has kicked in, but also what they can maybe expect going forward as well?
Well, the fans at Brighton Hove Albion are fantastic. You know, support the club in their numbers. They support the club when they travel away, and everything they've done since I've been at the club has been supportive, and they seem to have a real good understanding of financial fair play. They seem to have a good understanding of what's been happening within the club, and they've supported it, and they've understood also the effects that it's had on them with increases and some of the services that have gone to the club. So, you know, the message to them is, you know, trust the club. The club is there for the long run. You know, it's stable. Everything that the chairman does, that the board does, that Paul Barber runs, that we run on the football side, has a long-term plan and future for the club. And it might, you know, we're not going to jump into things, but with, you know, successful businesses are run on targets with motivated staff and with support from its clients and customers and critical people. And at Brighton Hove Albion, that foundation is in place, and for the future it looks very good. Whether we get in the Premier League this year, 2, 3, 4 years' time, that is the aim, and everything we do is to strive to get into the Premier League.